Hello, how's everybody? How's everybody today? Um, we're gonna do a watercolor. It's gonna be a small watercolor. We have an hour, and yeah, let's let's get an idea of what it's gonna be about. So we're gonna do some lemons on a tree. As we learn certain aspects of watercolor, I'll be speaking about those in detail. Okay. You, as one of my students, may have already done this work. Um, Maybe you left halfway through, and this video will help you finish with the concepts. And what I encourage is for you to do it again if you already completed it. So um, the more you do the same exercise, the more you get familiar with controlling the water and what watercolors actually can do. Okay, it's all about being able to control and do what you want, and what you don't want, control it. That's all what a good watercolor artist knowledge is, right? And be a good critic of your work. But you need to practice, that way you know how water behaves in the paper. So this is watercolor paper. Get your materials, your 2 containers of water, tissue or napkins or paper, your watercolors, right? The kit everybody has. And I have a few brushes. I have the same brush twice, and one that's a little thicker. I'm not thicker, just flat. So this will contain a little more water, but I'm gonna probably not even use it. And it's always too good to keep around, but we're not gonna use a pencil to maybe sketch where things are gonna be in a watercolor. Not to give details, I always emphasize just to know where things are. But we won't need really the pencil, but it's a tool to keep around. Um, okay, this is all we need. Let's get started. I could show you what we have done in the past in the big picture of um, the lemons that we did in the past, but this time I'm gonna make them smaller. So for that, I'm gonna cut my paper, okay, even smaller. And I want you to, as you work, and I I apologize in this video specifically on the camera not being able maybe to focus clearly on the work on the paper. It's kind of far out, so I'll bring it up to the lenses, and hopefully it will focus um, for you, the viewer. But you see, it's kind of far out. It's hard for me in this situation right now to bring the camera and play with it itself. So I'll bring the paper towards you. Okay. I mean towards the camera. So we'll work with half of the paper that we usually do. I'll put this here, and the reason why I put it there is so when I mix my colors, I can still see the colors rather than on the table, right? So even though this is plastic, on the white of the paper, I could see how the colors are gonna actually look like. Okay, so let's get started. We're gonna do about 7 lemons, and yeah, I meant to say as I got cut out that I want you, because it's small, pay more attention to what you're doing, to your work. Your brush more likely is a small brush that comes with the kit. So again, this is a good exercise to use your small brush because it's a small work of art. But watercolor requires, even in fast strokes and fast big strokes, there's attention to it. There's a reason for those. But I want you to be a little more attentive to your work by working small. And the fact that it will allow us in 1 hour to complete the work. Let's see. Okay. In the center or place you watch this video, you may not be able to pause it, but you get the link. And from home, you could always pause it, rewind, and as it's paused, you could just catch up. Okay. Because it's obviously hard to work at the same time paying attention to me as you're also working. So I'm gonna put a drop or two of water in the colors that I more likely will need. And I call this activating the color, but I don't let the color get activated enough that it's gonna interrupt my um, my next color. Okay. All right. So let's get started. You see how I already grabbed some blue. So be aware of that because I want yellow. And we're gonna start with the lemons, the light color lemons. We're gonna do about 7 of them. Then we're gonna do the branches. Excuse me. I'm gonna leave some gaps for those branches in the painting, and those gaps, the little gaps, will be covered by leaves. So I know that my leaves, as they cover the lemons, um, they'll go out of the branches, but at the same time, some of the leaves will go over those branches. Okay, so not always. Um, I don't want to always have to cover branches with my leaves, so that's why I will leave some gaps, and I will leave some certain gaps, and I'll explain them as I do. Okay, so let's do these 7 lemons in yellow, and I'll do them in different tonalities of yellow. So some of them will be intense, and some of them will not be. So this one, it's okay. Lemons have like a oval shape. I'm gonna grab water, not color, and do a second one. So because I grab water and not color, this second one is gonna be lighter. You see, it's lighter. But for this one, I'm gonna have to grab water. Actually, sorry, color. But I'm actually not. Let me grab water and wet the paper. And after I wet the paper, I'm gonna add the color in it. And this is actually gonna be different. I'm keeping them all almost the same size, these 3. I said we were gonna do 7. These 3 seems to be almost the same size. I kind of wet the paper, even though it had yellow on my brush, and then added the color, and it has a different effect. So 1, 2, 3, maybe the 4th has is smaller but bright. 2, 3, 4. The 5th could be bigger about here. And if I need to make it lighter, I'll start another one and fill this with water. You know what I mean? You gotta be, so that's what I'm doing. Okay, if you wonder, I'm starting this one and not finish the other because I want the other to be a little lighter. So now I can grab water for this one here, you see, and it will have less yellow because I stopped myself halfway through. If I have kept on going, then this would have been much more brighter. And for some reason, I didn't want it to be too bright. But I did want it to make it bigger. So some of them go this way, this other way. There's 6 of them. Maybe I'll do 9, but let's do another one here behind this one, a little brighter. And it's not just brighter, it's wetter because I kept on adding water. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's pretend to show one back here. And if you notice, I'm leaving some gaps. You see the gaps of white? There's like gaps. Those gaps have a reason. Maybe later I will fill them up. But for now, they help me see that there's 2 lemons here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I said, if I don't do 7, I'll do 9. So I need one more. Maybe about here. Very small. Okay. So now as they're wet them maybe. Sorry, wet them if they're getting dry. And add some orange in some of them. So I'm just adding more water to them as because I know they were drying and I could see they're very wet now. But that wetness will allow us to um, mix some colors on them. Let's see. Okay. So I'm gonna grab some orange. Remember, if you already done this, you know what is gonna happen. This orange will mix with the water. I'm making them random. You see, I'm going one side, yes, but at the same time, I add in some patches that are kind of random. Okay, maybe I'll emphasize that orange in some of them. I don't know, maybe this one down here. But I know it's wet. You see, we still know that it's still wet, okay? So if it was drier, this orange right here will be so much stronger and emphasized. All right, cleaning my brush, excuse me, so I could make a different color in some of them. And this time it will be green. That's a strong green. So I take it to the side. Strong green meaning I grab a lot of pigment because it was activated. And taking it to the side allows me to add more water to it. You see, so it's going to be less stronger, more transparent. And my first touch, let's see, it's going to be here in the napkin to get that first drop and not make the green so strong. Maybe I'll add green to some of the ones that are orange already. Just be careful because what will happen is that will no longer be green. If it mixes with the orange too much, it will be a brownish, very dark color. So these lemons are not that mature. These ones are, um, it's okay. So you see how I'm grabbing some of the lemon color, the yellow, sorry, color, because this was so wet that when I pass my brush, the brush is actually working as a sponge and sucking in that color. If you want that to do, great. If you don't do it, stop it. But be on what I'm cleaning my brush, but just be really aware that the how intense these yellows are. Okay, maybe I'll make one more intense. This is already very intense, but I could even make it more intense. And later you could add this, okay? You see, you could add the intensity in some spots, not all the lemon, maybe just this spot here. I don't know. You know what I mean? So make sure you make them different and not just different in size, different in tones. They could be a little dirty. Who knows? That's how nature it is, you know. Um, but they're very diverse, different from each other. I'm working a little fast because I want to make sure we get the whole painting completed with branches and leaves and everything in different tones. But you see how what I'm going to do now, I'm going to wet them again, not to add color, but I'm wetting them in some areas that I want to collect what's there. Look, to create a highlight. That's a very strong highlight this one has. What's the other one I wet? So if you notice when wherever the napkin touched was collecting yellow. So wherever the napkin touched the lemon, it created a little white gap because the napkin worked 1, 2, 3 as a sponge and sucked in the wet water that was there that was yellow. So now what you can see is the paper. So you can create highlights like that. Just make sure obviously you wet that area so the color gets wet and then you take it out. I might add some green here because it's too in one spot. What's happening? but I still like it. Okay, let's do our branches, okay? And to make brown, this palette doesn't have it, but we already learned having having green. What is green made out of? If you have your color wheel that you have done, you will know that green is made out of blue and yellow. So now all we need to add, and let's leave this green here because we'll need it for the leaves. All I need to add to that green is some red, because red is the color missing from yellow and blue. We have yellow, yellow, blue. We have three primary colors. So basically brown comes out of the three primary colors. Blue, yellow, red. That makes brown. So green already has yellow and blue. So we need the red. Otherwise, I would have had to start from adding blue, yellow, red. But the green already has that mixture that is the blue and yellow. So mixing this should create brown. But this brown is going to be a brown that is emphasizing. Let's see what color is emphasizing. It's still emphasizing the green, which means that I need to add more red. Let's add more red. I was just cleaning the brush so I don't dirty my red. I mean the red that's here. I don't want to put this color here. You see, you gotta be conscious of this palette and not dirty these colors. I may need more red, but brown needs red, and you could actually see it in the brown, the red, in a way, you know. But this is a really okay brown. Let's see. You can see that is brown. It looks dark on the camera, but the branches are gonna come. We have an oval, right? We have like my fist is a lemon. So in an oval, the branch where the lemon grows out of is one of the ends that are narrow of the oval. So it's one of these two ends. It's not the bottom end because they're falling. So it's going to obviously be the top. And I'm making my branches bend and go behind other lemons like this. Does that make sense? As they come closer to the tree up there, the branches should get thicker. Okay. I don't like how my branches, I made them all have the same bending, but it's okay. It's okay. Breathe, relax. This should be something to enjoy. Okay. I promise this video for those who left the other project that it was these lemons interrupted. I said I was gonna leave gaps, remember? And I forgot to leave them. So I forgot to leave some gaps. But it's important to have left those gaps, because those gaps are going to allow us to cover the area with leaves. It's okay. But you get the idea that having some gaps helps the picture eventually, because I know what's going to happen. That's the other thing with watercolor. It's good to know, to have an idea, of what you want to represent. So these are my branches. I'm going to add some little ones that don't have lemons, but they may have leaves, tiny leaves, or they may have a flower. So that's a little branch here that doesn't have a lemon. It's okay. What I may do is leaves. The branch goes thicker as it goes up, to the tree. And the other thing is I will add a different tone to maybe highlight some areas, or sorry, darken some areas or things like that. So let's get on with the leaves. We're moving on a good time basis here. Let's start the leaves, because the leaves will have different tonalities too. I won't clean this brush. It has the brown, and this leaf, remember, I know that it had the green. And look, I'm bringing back my green here, adding water, and it's okay because, and the leaves of a lemon tree are kind of round, kind of like the rose leaves. They're kind of round. And once the bottom, I believe, is lighter than the top. But my main point, just like the lemons, keep diversity, okay? The whole point of watercolor is that it can give you different tonalities by the amount of water the pigment has. Just that makes it transparent in different tones. Some of them are brighter, some of them are transparent. So it's not like if I'm picking an acrylic color, which will always be the same until I mix it with another color. Watercolor, because of the water, creates different greens. Some of them are going to be darker, rich with the more green, and some of them are more transparent with more water in them. That's what makes a watercolor interesting. So you see how this leaf is very light, so I'll add more green to make it more rich in pigment. Look, in pigment. That's in the pigment color. I know I need to add more pigment to it. So sorry, to some of the flowers. Sorry, leaves. So I start with that. Now the leaves are gonna also help us define some of the lemon shapes, because look, the leaves is getting basically the lemons are yellow, yes, but it's a light color that almost blends with the paper. If you were to look at this in a black and white tonality, yellow is very light. So mixes, it doesn't mix it, but it matches almost the paper in regards to tone. So putting leaves in certain areas will help us define the outline of those lemons. Like, okay, so basically, we see the outline of this lemon here because it's very yellow, but not much here. So watch how a leaf coming out of here will help us see this side of the lemon. You see, because it's coming out of this area here. And leave some gaps of white always, don't worry, it helps. Whenever things are meeting, don't just always hit color with color. Sometimes leave gaps, and in watercolor, that's pretty to see. Okay, I'll make a leaf that comes out of like here. And your leaf, even the leaf of a lemon is like I said, round. You can still do them, some of them narrow, um, and that would represent that you're looking at the leaf from from an angle. So if this is a leaf and it's flat, right, you see the whole roundness of it. When you see it like in an angle, it's going to be narrow. Okay. And these leaves that I'm doing right now are very green, as you can see. But if I keep grabbing water to my next ones, they're not going to be that rich in color green because they're going to be more transparent. And I may want that. I could add more green later. This leaf actually needs to be on top of this branch. You see, if you do this, then you need to make it, I'm going to need to make it darker just for the reason that is in front of this other branch because it's closer. Okay. So these gaps, remember we said they will be used to put leaves in front of them. And we're gonna fill this area with lots of leaves. Don't be afraid of them. They're gonna come out of the branches, not just in the spots that they are touching the lemons. They could also just be by themselves in the branch. I need to make some of them lighter, and then later, if I need to, I'll add more dark um, aspects to that leaf. But for now, I need to do some of them lighter just to diversify the intensity. You see? So you see how it's starting to take. I'm adding water here just to activate and get more pigment out of this area. And that's is because this leaf here needs to be darker, the whole thing. I'm gonna keep adding more in different spots, you see. And yes, the majority right now are coming on the spot the lemon comes out of the branch. If you notice, yes, that's where most of these leaves are coming from. But not all of them will, you'll see, because the tree is full of leaves. And I noticed some students were hesitant to put leaves or um, don't worry at all. That's part of starting to do watercolors and looking at nature. Look really at a picture of um, I shouldn't have let these two touch here just out of aesthetics. So I wet this brush that is clean and I'm pushing that pigment out of the area there. But yeah, look at a lemon tree picture just for reference and you see that it's full of leaves, it's nature, it's a rich tree that is showing that is healthy, and why not put enough leaves? Um, I'm getting close to another thing a leaf has. It has a vein in the middle, okay, that feeds the leaf, like kind of like that, right through the middle. There's a line in the leaf right through the middle. You know, the camera may not focus because I wanted to emphasize the table, but these are enough leaf for now. Before I show you something I want to do, that's gonna make the picture even look more realistic. But for now, this right here, I need to darken because this was the leaf that went over this branch, and it needs to be entirely dark if it's gonna be dark here. Okay. So before I move on to more green of more leaves, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 lemons. Remember, and they're in the tree, right? But visually, this is what we're going to do. Okay. Um, Especially in the middle here, these two that are right in the middle, we can all agree that these two lemons are right in the middle. The ones in the middle, especially because that's where the concentration visually of the tree body is. So even if they're hanging above and the tree's behind up here above, is the middle where the concentration of branches, leaves is actually located. The ones to the side and edge, just like when you look at a tree, are those leaves that just hang out there and is the limit. Basically, is the limit. So that means that in this middle, I need to put more leaves. Now, the way we're going to put leaves They're not going to be in front of these branches, okay? We're going to lightly use this green. That's very light, and I know it's light because it's very watery. I use a lot of water. Two, and if it's not light enough, I'm cleaning my brush to get rid of the pigment green, but I'm grabbing more water. If it's not if it wasn't light enough, we're gonna make it lighter, and we're gonna put green all behind here, and later we'll decide, okay, what to define that are gonna be leaves back here. But we're gonna fill this area, and when it comes to these edges here, we'll make them look random. But yeah, we're gonna make the area end in pointy things, just like leaves. But basically, we're surrounding these lemons in the middle with green representing the body of background of leaves that are just back here over all this. Does that make sense? You see how this all became green now? In the back is now white paper. So now I decide to put more dark in some random areas. So even though we defined some leaves, remember, because we knew where they were going to be, I fill the whole area with a very light green, which represents that the, the tree is all back here. You need to visually understand these exercises. And maybe here a lot of dark green, because it's um, where most of the main branches are. Now, I'm going to grab some blue to mix with my green. And the reason why I'm doing this, that's going to make the green be a little darker. Even darker than the darkest green we had so far, which is here. And I'm going to use this dark blue-green. I haven't done it yet. To even put some shade back here. So, but be aware that right now, this is very wet. I just put paint here and it was wet. Remember, it was wet because it was transparent and the paper even popped up a little. Look, you see how bumpy it is? That bump is because it got really wet right in the middle. So understand these aspects. But let's put some blue into our green. That's gonna create, I know I'm dirtying my green, sorry, my blue, but I'm gonna scoop all that and get and hide it. So this blue green or green that has blue in it is gonna be darker. You see, I could define these leaves that already were dark a little better. I'm not getting the effect I want with the word better because it's still wet. You see, it's exactly what I said. As I'm putting it down, it just mixes with what was there. So I'm gonna wait a little and I'll show you what I really want because I need this to be dry for this darker green, and we made it darker with the blue, take effect. So for it to be effective, you see, it took a little bit effect here because it has a lot. It has to be dry, okay? So we'll get back to this in a moment. Let's see what we can do. I could make a darker brown in a little corner. I'm not gonna do the whole thing dark that's here, but I'm gonna make a little, because remember this has brown, I believe still. I didn't clean it. Yep. So I'm gonna make my brown a little darker to put some dark aspects to my branches, a little outline, okay? And for that, we do have purple. So why not add purple to our brown? You could use purple straight up into that outline, but and you may wonder, oh, why is he using purple? Why not black? I think black will be too strong. I try to avoid using black colors. Try to darken your things with the same color you already have in here. So something like black is an extreme last situation. It does work though. Black does work because with water you get a transparency that is gray. You know, it won't look like this. Watered down black is actually not black. So that's why this is effective here. But I meant when you really want to create something very dark in a watercolor, try to avoid using that strong black. But to use grays and sure, watered down or transparent, sure. Any color with water in watercolor is effective. So let's put this purple and see if it's darker than what's already here. And it is. You see, and it's effective because this branch that's already here um, has dried already. I'm not going to do it in all of them, um, you know, but enough that you can get the idea. And maybe I'll add it in spot. Oop, my brush just uh, bounced. Did you notice? And spill color. Those little dots are the purple. Anyway, have to be careful, but it works. And I'm gonna do something at the end. I cannot forget. That's gonna be really cool. But my branches were already dry, so that's why this purple looks really effective. This tone of dark, and I could even make it darker, but it's okay. So what I was gonna say when I noticed I splashed my purple in some spots, it was that I can put this purple in spots the branches weren't yet, like here, here, maybe here. You see, that represents a branch that's hidden between the leaves. So I should even add more green. You see, this is what makes me think, this is why it's important the effect that we did of putting green all back here, because it really means the trees there. I actually need to actually looking at it, bring it all the way out here. Look, all the way up here. We need this more even up here, okay? Because the tree is really up here too. Anyway, okay. Does that make sense? So this is the brown that's really purple. I may clean this brush because I'm kind of done with my branches. I'm not gonna do flowers on this picture. I think it's small enough. So I'm not gonna add the flower effects, adding flowers, but you can see how there's little branches that stick out of some of the branches that are already here. You get the idea right there. Okay, so this was my green, right? The green that had the blue. Remember? Let's see if this is dry. If it's not entirely dry yet, so we still have to wait. I'm just grabbing more blue. If you had a hair dryer or a heat gun, you could just blow here to dry it faster, okay? You know, with a not too close, but with a I do have one, but I'm not gonna. But if you have a hair dryer at home and you need things to dry faster, you could use that. It just saves you time. Sometimes you need that time. So let me clean this brush that I used to add more green around, and I'm gonna actually clean the brush in the meantime that has the brown. Remember? And I'm going to take a tool that you may not have with you, but I have told you that it'd be nice for you to keep around if you get a hands on some one of them, or a drop of water fell right there. Okay, and it's like a little X-Acto knife. Oops. So try to get an X-Acto knife, obviously with its cover. Okay, because this is a dangerous tool. It's sharp. So make sure it has a cover. This is so far how it looks, the work. So what I know I need to do is that I know I work really fast on this piece, but I know that I'm gonna have to maybe redefine some of these lemons that are really blending with the white of the paper. And by the way, at the end, the last thing is that we're gonna add some blue, very light blue, very, very light blue in the white of the paper coming from out in to the painting, just to get rid of this whiteness of the paper, okay? But just at the end. And that will help us highlight these lemons, because right now they're disappearing almost because of the white paper. So this is the green of our leaves that we're going to highlight some darkness here, because you see it's too much the same green. We need to create some shade back here. Okay, so this brush is clean. I can verify that. Make sure you clean your brush really well at the end, because they'll get really hard and then you'll ruin your brush. And they will also, if you don't clean them well, even though they look clean, they are not clean. And if you don't test them in your napkin, when you put them on the paper, they'll have color in them because you did not clean them well. So let's see if this is dry. I'm gonna even try to add, okay, I added here a little bit of that brownish purple. I'm basically adding this bluish green to add tone or darkness to areas and highlight where other leaves could be. You see, like here. So these leaves gets defined because of the blue. Oops. Sorry, not blue, like the darkest greenish that I'm putting here. And the darkest blue, or the darkest green, which is actually a green that has more blue, can really come closer to the spots or area where the lemon is hitting the branch. That area right there should be where the shade of most leaves should be emphasized, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? I need to add more darkness right here, okay? And we can all agree visually that it's necessary. Maybe a little bit of shadow right there for that lemon to really sticks outside this other one. Okay. Let's see what happens with a lot of more darkness here, even though it's wet still. So I'm adding really dark areas, as you can see, just emphasizing. It's like right here. It's very important now for me to dissipate this a little. It's too strong in some spots. Okay, so I agree. It was necessary to make them dark, but maybe in some spot not too dark. Because the beauty of watercolor is not to put opaque pigments. But here I kind of had to, because this right here is the center where the most of the tree leaves are. So that concentration will has to make me make the decision to make um, more darkness or more tonality. So I'm cleaning my brush to add some yellow and maybe tones to some of the lemons here with green or something to make them a little more. And you could use your finger, and the finger, what the finger is doing for me is just collecting if I put too much pigment. So I'm adding some green to my lemons, but if I feel that the color is too strong, then I take my finger and I don't let it. I'm not liking much because it's just because it's still wet. So that's one of the things that happens. You do something and you try to, work around it, but it's still wet. So the fact that it's still wet doesn't let you do certain things. Certain things you can do while it's wet that you want. Remember, like when we mixed this and made our lemons kind of look a little orangey. So this was really good when it was wet. But for me to fix and outline this shape right here better for this lemon, I need this right here to dry so it doesn't look mixed like this. So what happened is it looks mixed up because it's still wet. So what we can do is there you go. Tap to dry the area, but go back in it with the color you need. Okay, so this blue is a little dirty because of the green. So I'm collecting, oops, make my blue a little dirty. With the napkin, it's fine. It's still blue. Okay, so I'm putting blue like that because I know I'm gonna add more water to it to dissipate it and make it come into the painting, kind of like from outside in with water. So that's what we're gonna do, okay? And as it gets closer to the lemons, it's gonna be a lighter blue. Does that make sense? So look, from out, in, but as it goes in, it's gonna be lighter with the water because it's gonna become more transparent, you see? I'm adding less pigment as I come closer here, less pigment and more water. And what that allows me is to make my blue dissipate. And the concentrated blue is in the corners. You see, it's out here. And I go in with more water and less pigment. Does that make sense? So I wet this. It has blue, I wet it. Yes, very light blue. But if I'm going to add blue, it's right at the corner. And push it out. Oop. You see, you have to be careful because that is because it's still wet. Okay, so I could get back to it later. Um, I, I will have to wait, but you get the idea. So as it becomes closer to the, clean your brush if it has too much blue. So this is what I'm doing now, cleaning my brush. So what it comes with is just water. There you go. So you see how the blue really kind of adds something to the painting in a way. Oops. And be the judge. Be confident. Paint. Practice. 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 That way you get. But that blue highlights the lemons because now the paper is not white. I wish you see it with a less bright. My light is pretty bright, as you can see as I bring it closer. My light is pretty bright, but as I bend it, you can see the corners carry a lot of blue, and as it goes into the lemons, um, I water it down, and it becomes lighter. The watering down here is to really mix this area here. Does that make sense? This lemon here is, I'm not liking it. You see how green this is? It's very green. It's okay if it's green, but it's too heavy, the color. It's not transparent. So to fix this, I'm gonna wet this, get the pigment out wet, and collect some of it with my brush, with my same brush. So I wet it, I wet the area, I'm activating that color, get my brush clean, kind of dry, use it as a sponge to pick that up. Now it's a little less emphasized. And that's it. I'm going to leave it here, okay? I'm going to sign it with, with this purplish. Actually, you know what? I could sign it. I should have done that. I could sign it with blue to be a little more subtle. Because since this is blue, and as you sign, you're losing pigment. You see, so the end of it has less pigment. "22, I need more pigment for the end." So you could go backwards because you start with dark blue, not dark blue, but dark color, whatever pigment you were carrying, whatever amount of transparency. Here is the emphasis, and as you move, you're losing pigment, so it's becoming more transparent. So you could go back, right? Look back, add more color, back, but then go backwards. Go from the back and move the other way around. So then they match the same tonality. That's how watercolors works. So I hope this little small exercise helps. And actually, the more you do, um, the more practice you get. I do have to fix this lemon here. Remember, do you see, this is the one that's bothering me. It's the yellow here came out, and it's changing the shape. The round shape of the oval is coming out here. So I'll fix this right now for you. Maybe adding a little bump of a leaf here, green, to cover this yellow. Just like basically a yellow bump here that affects the shape of the lemon in total. But you can see basic, we did in watercolor. It does looks like a watercolor. It's very subtle. There's some dark opaque colors here because for some reason I made the body of the tree itself very condensed here. It doesn't have to be like that, okay? You could have emphasized that your lemons are towards the edge of some branches like this. So there's less body of green here because it's the extension of a bunch of branches, okay? So let me fix this lemon with a tiny little bit of leaf. And we call it, that's very watery. Or it could be the same leaf right here. And with this green, I'm gonna take advantage and emphasize some veins, middle veins in some of these leaves. Okay, that's our painting. So have a good rest of the week. Keep practicing. Look at your paintings, put them up so you can see them, don't hide them. And you can look at them and see what you could fix. You could always fix certain things with water, activating the color that's already in the paper. And I'll see you. Let me try to make this go into the camera entirely right there. And it's not focusing again because I emphasize the table itself. But this is our painting for the day. Over here looks a little better because it will be focusing. It will be more in focus. Thank you. Have a good week. See you all very soon.